In our day, certain economic truths have become accepted as self-evident. A second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed. Among these are the right to a useful and remunerative job, the right to earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation.
Democrats are getting ready for a major push to raise the federal minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. Now, that's better than nothing, but it is not enough. The minimum wage should be raised to $15 incrementally over the next 3 years. Here are 7 reasons why. 1, had the minimum wage of 1968 been adjusted for inflation, it would be well above $10 an hour today. But the typical worker today is also more than twice as productive as then. Adjusted for both inflation and productivity gains, therefore, the minimum wage should be at least $15 an hour. 2, $10.10 an hour is not enough to lift all workers and their families out of poverty. This is especially true for millions of low-wage workers who want full-time jobs but can only work and find part-time work. Most low-wage workers are not teenagers. They're major breadwinners for their families. In 1968, the minimum wage translated in today's dollars would be about $10.60 an hour. The federal minimum wage today is obviously $7.25 an hour, far lower than it was in the late 1960s. And to finance all of this, we had a tax code that had a much, much higher marginal tax on the top incomes. The minimum wage has always been very popular. Always. Over 80% of the public, when asked, should the minimum wage be raised, says yes. But when it comes to actually implementing a change in the minimum wage, Republicans are dealing with a small business community that really hates minimum wage increases and will fight it. And the Democrats are dealing with a labor community that always wanted a minimum wage increase. So what you have is this funny back and forth. It's a dance.
What does it look like day to day to live on minimum wage with a family?
Well, it looks like you go home and you're not sure where your next meal is coming from. How are you going to shop at the grocery store to make ends meet? So you cut corners, you buy the least expensive food, quite often which is not healthy, processed food, GMO foods that are mass produced, and you're feeding your kids this not because you want to, but because you have to.
Instead of eating fruits and vegetables, we eat pizzas and stuff, because that's all we can afford. Fruits and vegetables are more expensive than pizzas. We last had fruits and vegetables a few weeks ago because we had the money then.
And it also means, how are you going to make the ends meet for rent next month? Am I going to buy my prescription drugs I need for medicine, or cut back on that and go pay the rent? You know, this is everyday struggle, Adam, and it really can be trying on the human spirit. It's got to be depressing, getting people to be depressed. And you can see some of the results of that. You know, more and more mental health problems. We have stress. You have young people neglected because parents are barely able to survive this, and the young people themselves are stressed out.
And part of what's happened over the last year has been that the Democrats in the Senate have tried to move forward an agenda, right? They've tried to move forward some really straightforward bills. No one should work full-time and still live in poverty. We believe we should raise the minimum wage.
I'm from Vancouver, Washington, so just right across the river. Minimum wage there is $9.47, and that's the wage I make.
In Oregon, the minimum wage is $9.25.
It's true. If you have a bad diet, then it makes you look fatter. Sometimes I yell at myself because I'm disappointed in myself because people tease me for the way I look. My mom can't work and my mom can't drive, and my mom's sick.
When I get really stressed out, I go into episodes. They're like seizures, and I end up in the hospital, and they said my body tries to shut down because I can't handle stress. It gets worse every time. And they said that it would eventually end up killing me.
I worry worry about her a lot. It is hard feeling like you're gonna lose your mother.
If I wasn't like this, things would be different. If I could work or drive, we'd have more money. Them seeing the way that I am with stress and everything doesn't really help them, because I don't want them to grow up not knowing how to deal with it either. And it scares me to even have to think about that, because I don't want them to be like me at all. I want my kids to be better than me.
You know, you mentioned it many times, and it's all over the news. We all see it. Rich getting richer, poor getting poorer, disappearing, the middle class is disappearing. What happens if we continue down this route?
And we know that when that's happened historically, and it's happening today to the tune of 9% of the American middle class, it has shrunk. The entire middle class of America in the last 15 years has shrunk by 9%, literally, in terms of income, what they bring in. The median income in the United States used to be $56,000 a year, just about 15 years ago. It is now $51,000 a year. When a student graduates from college with a bachelor's degree today, they expect to make beginning salary $35,000 a year. 15 years ago it was $50,000 a year. So we know what's going on with that disappearing middle class.
We can't survive on minimum wage. I'm struggling every month. I'm going into debt every month just having that job, you know, just trying to support myself. Burgerville talks a lot about how they support the environment and they support sustainability, and they care about where their beef comes from. And what we're saying is, if you care about your beef, if you care about your cows, if you care about sustainability, you got to care about your workers, and you got to support your workers, and you got to have your workers able to sustain themselves.
People should not, in this country, have to work 50 or 60 hours a week in order to survive. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. It has got to be raised to a living wage.